Without semiconductors, life's pretty difficult. Your alarm didn't go off, your screen didn't work, you can't even go and brush your teeth. You think you'll have a coffee, but the kettle doesn't switch on. Alright, so clearly we didn't have the best morning without semiconductors, but why was that? What made them so important to the point where removing them from our life made every device break? Well, to understand this, I think it's important that we first start on what a conductor is. Okay, so let's take a look at a very common conductor. Here's copper. Inside, we can see it's got tiny little pieces. These are called atoms, and they're orbited by electrons. Now, these electrons, you can think of them as tiny pieces of electricity. Now, watch what happens when we add a battery. These tiny electrons start to jump from atom to atom, and the reason they can do that is because conductors hold on to these electrons very lightly, meaning they can escape and jump from atom to atom. So to be clear, the point of a conductor is that it allows electricity to flow across it through letting these electrons jump as you see on screen. Okay, so that's a conductor understood, but we also have insulators. Now, insulators hold on to electrons very tightly, meaning they try to jump away, but they get pulled right back onto the atom. This stops electricity flowing. That's why in cables we put copper on the inside and plastic on the outside to contain the electricity. Okay, so we've discussed what a conductor is, we've discussed what an insulator is. Let's go over what a semiconductor is. Now, a semiconductor is made from a very common element called silicon, and on its own, silicon isn't that impressive. It's a very poor conductor, and you can find it on any beach, literally just from sand. So you may be wondering why we're even talking about it. Well, with silicon, scientists do a term called doping, where they fuse in other elements into the silicon. And what that does is dislodge a few electrons. So now we have electrons which aren't attached to anything and are floating loosely in the material. And through a signal, they can be released. So what you need to take from this is, through a signal, silicon can start sending electrons down it and become a good conductor. So it can go from being a poor conductor to a good conductor through a signal. Well, how can we use that? That's where the transistor comes in. So let's have a look at that. Okay, so here's a diagram of a transistor. For now, just focus on the left on the emitter side. We can see that there's electrons gathered up that are ready to go. Now let's watch what happens carefully when we send a small signal through the base in the middle. Okay, so by sending a small signal through the middle, we were able to open the wall up and send power through. Then by removing it, we were able to close it. This is a switch, but with no mechanical parts. Now, due to this innovation of switches being able to have no mechanical parts, we were able to scale them down so small that you can fit 30,000 on a single human hair. Now, what does that mean for me and you? It means that code can run, because each code is a transistor. Imagine every 0 and every 1 in code was the size of a large switch. It simply wouldn't work. Now, that's all of the technical explanations wrapped up, and I do want to stress that there were some parts that were a little bit simplified. For instance, it's not common practice to reference electrons as little packets of electricity, but I thought for the purpose of explanation it would help people solidify their knowledge. With that said, I hope that the video was easy to follow and that you learned a bit from it.